see one of these two.
Well, we've already seen Kennard in the pits, and so they're not doing a driver change. So, but presumably there was a problem or something like that. The guy behind the 47 car of Manuel Lauck is heading over now to Benjamin Laumberger. So they are the last of our pit stoppers. So at the end of this lap now that Maxime Martin is on, we will get a true rundown of the order and we'll bring that to you. But Richard Westbrook only 1.6 seconds behind at the end of that last lap. Martin was 0.6 of a second quicker.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you can see the gap has opened marginally on that 1.6 seconds. It'll probably be closer to 1.8 or 1.9, assuming that they maintain the gap as they come up to complete yet another lap. We've got 26 minutes or so of this race remaining, and Richard Westbrook, who knows the car particularly well, knows what it's capable of, could have had pole position, but he abandoned a lap when he had a fastest sector with about a minute to go, and Maxime Martin got the advantage.
Yeah, Martin pounced in the very final seconds of qualifying. In fact, he was the only guy to still be out on track when the clock ticked down to 0.
Interesting, fastest race lap on the last lap, lap 19, has gone to Maxime Martin, 1 minute 39.068, which is a fairly good effort considering that pole position was a 138.5, so just under half a second approximately from the pole lap in race configuration. Okay, fresh tires, but more fuel than you would normally run in qualifying. And Richard Westbrook, the gap, it's still showing 1.637 as opposed to 1.601. So it looks more initially than it does than it did initially.
Absolutely. I think Westbrook kind of matched him on that last lap. So as they come across the line, Maxime Martin leads, Richard Westbrook in second, Jamie Campbell-Walter in third place, fourth now is Nicky Katzberg, and then I think we've got the number 3 car, haven't we? Yeah, Steph Dusseldorp is in 5th position with Marcus Winkelhock in 6th. The Schwager has now handed over to the 37 car of Nicky Pastorelli. Darren Turner in 8th, Hohen Ardel in 9th, and Sergio Jimenez completing the top 10 at the moment with just under 25 minutes remaining. We've completed 20 laps around this 3.7 kilometre Ordos circuit, and it's provided some good racing so far. There's been some good overtaking opportunities.
Absolutely. The nature of the racetrack is such, you're going to get a lot of bunching, and you're going to get a few do-or-die efforts down the inside. Maybe somebody will take the long route round. I want to see now, can Darren Turner in the Aston Martin number 8, can he do anything with Nicky Pastorelli in the Lamborghini just ahead? So the battle that's going on for 7th place. Remember, point scorers only go down to 6th place in the qualifying race. 8 points for a win, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. So everybody will be trying to take advantage of the fact that the Kroom Lure car is really in a difficult position. 14th place, whatever the problem was.
But they had that long pit stop, didn't they?
That long pit stop, we never found out whether it was a wheel or a nut or a bit of everything. But down in 14th position, yes, 14th position, and way, way out of the points, and they're not going to make any improvement.
So on board we go with Christian Hohen Ardel. He turns into the final right-hander on the circuit at turn 17, then he's behind Darren Turner, who in turn is behind Nicky Pastorelli. I was expecting Pastorelli to perhaps go a little bit quicker than this, but Darren Turner has got in the car and started doing a good job in that Aston Martin. Pastorelli, as they came across the line that time, has a 0.8 of a second advantage in that 7th position. But if anything, Darren Turner now coming under a lot of pressure from the number 4 Hexis Racing Aston Martin, driven at the moment by Christian Hohen Ardel. We go on board with Hohen Ardel into the long, long, long left-hander at turn 4, which then becomes turn 5. It's kind of one corner, really. It's given 2 names.
You make 2 apexes, but the key is to put yourself in a good position to take turn 6 and get advantage of it. But it's such a short sprint. It's all about acceleration, then on the brakes into turn 7, and from here through turn 8, nothing you can do. It would take an error from the car ahead of you to give you an advantage. Up into turn 9, then you jump literally and physically off the ground. Then through 10, keep it neat and tidy. And well, if you're in a shot to move down the inside into turn 11, but even as close as these 2 Aston Martins are, there's no chance at all
So at the moment we've got Christian Hohenadel and Andrea Piccini sitting outside of the points. They're third in the championship. Mark Basseng and Marcus Winkelhock are currently sixth, so they'll pick up 1 point in the championship. Yeah. And Michael Crum and Lucas Löhr aren't going to pick up any points in the championship.
So the championship lead was 14 going into this race between the Nissan of Löhr and Crum and Basseng and Winkelhock. Should the Winkelhock car, currently sixth, finish in sixth, the gap will be down by only 1 point. So in relative terms, it could be a lot worse. But it's a disappointment because the position that Löhr and Crum currently are running in 14th will not do them any favours for the championship race on Sunday.
No, absolutely. It's not a particularly good weekend so far for them. They started, where did they start on the grid? It was all the way down in 8th position, but then they've dropped back subsequently since then. So Löhr and Crum just struggling a little bit. Sorry, 7th position, I should say, which ultimately became 6th with the Aston starting from the pit lane. So from 6th to drop to 14th, it's a very, very difficult afternoon.
It is. It's I think disappointing would be the understatement of the afternoon. In the meantime, Hohenadel keeping their eye out on the other Aston. There we go, back to the 2 lead cars. The gap's opened up fractionally to 1.8 seconds. You can see that Martin's taken a thousandth or so out of the Nissan over the previous 2 laps. But it's such a little difference, 1.8, 1.6 seconds. But it's going in the favour of the Ford.
So, do we have enough time? Does Richard Westbrook have the pace to catch up with our race leader? Let's have a little talk to Peter Dumbreck, who was in that car, before handing over to Richard Westbrook.
Peter, we just saw your movements being rather animated. Do you have any issues?
No, the car's good. I just, I wanted to make sure we've covered absolutely everything. I wanted to tell the engineer to remind him about the brake balance, but the car is running perfectly, so fingers crossed we'll keep this result.
Can you take it? Can you take it from the Ford? Can you take it from the Ford?
So I missed it.
Can you take the lead from the Ford?
Will be very difficult, you know. They're nip and tuck. But I think he's just got the legs over us. We need to look at setup for tomorrow, but we're very close, you know. And it's nice we have a nice gap to the other cars. So fingers crossed for a good result.
Thank you.
Well, Richard Westbrook, they say they're going to settle for second place. He's not, is he?
No, Richard's gone aggressive. He took the best part of half a second out in one of the lap before last. So the gap as they came across the line in lap 23 was 1.3 seconds, and Richard right now is lasering in on the rear of the Ford, trying to pick up momentum again and put the Ford under pressure to make Maxime Martin push harder, put more load onto the car. Of course, in doing so, you're doing the same to your car. But you saw, I mean, Richard coming through the turn 9 and 10, he was most aggressive in cutting inside the corner on the limit of what probably would be seen as acceptable, to just try and find another. Here we go. This is up into turn 9, over the step. Now watch the Nissan following behind. He cuts across the inside over the rumble strips and tries to shave another thousandth or maybe 100th of a second off the gap between first and second.
Absolutely, the gap is 1.4 seconds as they cross the line that time. It's really ebbing and flowing really between 1.3 and 1.6 up at the front. I mean, there's not a massive amount for Westbrook to gain because it's only going to be 2 points, but pole position could be crucial.
I think that's the key, that they can start the race with their car on pole position. It is an advantage. It's a psychological also benefit to the team. And here we see now what's going on further down the field. The Aston Martin and the second of the JMR Motorsports cars, driven by Lucas Löhr, that's running in still 14th position, but maybe looking at 13th. Again, no advantage in terms of points scoring, but nonetheless, 1 position higher on the grid is always very welcome. And Thomas Enger now behind the wheel of the Aston.
Yeah, and if he starts 13th on the grid, he'll have the inside line for turn 1, which is always a helpful place to be. Of course, Thomas Enger started from the pit lane. Is this a look up the inside? That's going to be a little bit close. Surely Enger can hang on around the outside. No, he can't.
He wasn't interested. Thomas Enger didn't do anything there to defend. He decided, I'm not going to make an issue. I don't want to damage my car. We've got a brand or a fresh engine, whichever, in the car. Whether I start 13th or 14th, he may also have a problem at the pace he's running at right now. It was a no-brainer that Lucas Löhr was going to get through, and there was a fair bit of cooperation from I've lost my thoughts from
Yes,
Lucas
it was
Luhr.
Lucas Luhr, yeah. So we go back on board with Christian Owen-Ardle still running in that 9th position, just behind Darren Turner. On that previous lap, Owen-Ardle did a 1 minute 40.7, a 10th of a second slower than Turner. Only 7/10 of a second between them though, and it's been around that for a little bit of time. Looks like it might be a little bit more as they turn down through turn 14. May possibly have just extended a little bit on this lap. Jamie Campbell-Walter sets his fastest lap of the race the previous time around, running in 3rd place. But that's a good point that Peter Dumbreck made a minute ago. 2nd place man Richard Westbrook, he's got 22 seconds back to 3rd place. So there's no pressure at all from behind.
No, there's not. There's a race between these two cars for the lead, and the 3rd place Nissan of Jamie Campbell-Walter, as you say, sufficiently far behind not to be an issue. It's a matter of pride. If you're a racing driver, you race to win. You don't necessarily want to drive to consolidate, and Richard Westbrook will not want to consolidate. He'll want to pressurize as much as he can within his own limits. The Ford that's leading this race, the gap up to 1.7 seconds it was, lower than that down to 1.3 a couple of laps ago. And when you're pushing so hard, we saw Richard pushing very hard through turns 9 and 10, you do a lot of hard work on your car. You might need to let it breathe for a lap or two, give the tyres and the brakes that moment to recover.
So Maxime Martin leading the way with 16 minutes remaining here at the Ordos International Circuit. He's looking for his 2nd championship race victory of the season. As we look back, now the gap visible back to Richard Westbrook. It looks like it's extended. No, it's still 1.7 seconds. So Martin, as I say, looking for his 2nd championship race win of the season after he picked one up at the Saxon Ring. This, of course, is the qualifying race, though, of course, which he won in Abu Dhabi. So he won the very first race of the season, but it hasn't quite come together for the team this year, even though they've usually had the pace.
Yeah, and there's certainly Maxime Martin and Fred Makivicki have been a very combative and competitive, balanced driver lineup. But the Ford GT, it's a supercar, but not on every circuit.
So out of the corner, up towards turn 5. Let's go down to Haley in the pit lane. She is with Alex Muller.
Alex, are you happy the way the Aston Martin is now performing?
Yeah, we got back our engine. We got back our performance. We changed the engine. Thanks to the boys, they did it like in 1.5 hours, the engine change. We missed it like by 15 seconds to get out of the pit lane to the starting grid. So now Thomas stuck in traffic, but the car is fine.
Thank you.
But you can see, I mean, he's struggling in turn 1. The car was running wide on the exit. Whether that's, again, I don't think Thomas is doing the normal Thomas Enger thing, which is driving the wheels off the car. And I don't think he's capable of doing it. I don't think he's got the car right now to do it with. There was an easy pass from Lucas Luhr a few laps ago on number 7, the Gulf Aston Martin. So Thomas sitting there and running around, lapping roughly, well, middle 1 minute 41, the same lap time as Lucas Luhr in the Nissan that just overtook him a minute or so ago.
I fear we saw 2 pit stops for Jonathan Kennard and Christopher Brook, and they are in the pits again, and it looks like they have been for a lap or 2 now. So maybe Haley can go and find out what happened, but it looks as though still troubles with that Lamborghini.
Yeah, they had troubles in qualifying, they had troubles in practice. Engine was down in power for some strange reason, and Friday's practice, and they also had a gearbox problem which delayed them significantly. Only 4 laps on the second free practice on Friday afternoon. So it's really on the back foot for the second of these 2 returnee Lamborghinis.
So it's worth making a point, because these 2 Lamborghinis we saw battling earlier on, the 37 and 38 car, and their battling allowed the number 3 Aston Martin to get involved, and as a result, Steph Dusseldorf, when he took over, he is now in 5th position, some 5.5 seconds off the road. And I would venture if they'd have, played the team game a little bit, Dusseldorf wouldn't be there.
Well, I think that's one of the issues when you got the boss is also the driver of one of the 2 cars. So it's a slightly unusual scenario where you have the boss of a team is actually, whether he's the lead or however they determine the drivers within each of the 2 cars. But certainly he did hold up the Dominic Schweiger car, and that allowed the other Aston to come into play. And maybe the pit lane should have played a bigger part in the judgment as to who should gain the advantage between those two Lamborghinis.
Absolutely. So there is the 21 car. Jamie Campbell-Walter still running in third position. He's 4 seconds ahead of Nicky Katzberg behind him, and quite a way behind Richard Westbrook behind. And you can see that he has been pulling away from Nicky Katzberg in recent laps. We saw the two of them battling as soon as they came out the pits, but Campbell-Walter's got into the rhythm, he's got into the flow, and he's pulling away.
Yeah, I mean, the out lap for any car is always going to be its most vulnerable. But once you get through that first lap, you get the tyre, and also because there's a driver change, the driver also gets accustomed to the feel of the car, having sat out the first 25 or so minutes in the garage waiting for the driver changes. You just can't turn it on like a light bulb. Some think they can, but they're very rare.
Well, and the track conditions are probably quite different now because it's really
changes.
sunny.
Yeah, I mean, the track temperature clearly will have risen. The ambient temperature, certainly where we're sitting in the commentary booth, feels much warmer as well. And all these things are what you have to factor in, especially the driver who is taking over. He hasn't had the benefit of a nice, gentle outlap from the pits to go to the grid to get some sense of what the differences may be. So it's a tougher role for the driver who takes over after the mandatory pit stop.
So we're watching our 5th place man there, the number 3 Hexis Aston Martin of Steph Dusseldorf. He's really got the easy stint in this one because the man who was in it before, Clivio Piccioni, he did all the battling to make up positions and such. Oh, that's a shame. Thomas Enger in the pits. Yeah. Muller was saying, well, we were saying, weren't we, that it didn't look quite right.
The car didn't look like it was. I mean, Thomas Enger wrings the neck of a racing car. He's a great race driver, and Thomas wasn't doing that. He knew he had some issues, and therefore when Lucas Luhr came up behind him, he didn't make a fight of it. He gave the room for the Nissan to go through, although he matched the times of the Nissan, but there was something clearly not working for Thomas Enger and that car, and they've taken it into the pits.
So this is a concertinaing effect for 10th position. We've got Sergio Jimenez at the front of it in his Corvette, then the two Ford GTs. The first is the Belgian racing car of Christopher Nygaard, and then behind is Mark Henrici in the number 40 Mark VDS Racing Ford GT.
Watch down the inside. You could see that Henrici was thinking about it, and he's going to have a look as well. I suspect not close enough to do it into turn 16, but we might see Christopher Nygaard having a look at it, sniffing the back of the Corvette, not liking the fumes, wanting fresh air.
Absolutely, it was a very wide line taken in by Henrici. Is that going to give him a better run over the start finish straight? There we can see Bas Linders.
I'd love to speak to Baz and say, well, what happened when you came out of turn 2 into turn 3? You find a bit of the racetrack that isn't officially racetrack.
I got away with it as well.
He got away with it. I'm amazed.
Into turn 2 they come, and Sergio Jimenez, who took over that car from Michael Rossi, who we saw having some great scraps as well, is trying to hold off Nygaard and Henrici. Of course, Henrici probably a little bit disappointed at the moment, him and Bas Linders, because their teammate is leading the race very, very comfortably. They'd hoped to be a little bit further up the field.
Well, there wasn't a great qualifying for Mark Henrici. In fact, at one point he went off track on the exit of turn 10 and drove through the gravel, did a bit of almost haymaking, and the car did a further 3 laps with straw, grass, blocking the radiators. I dread to think how the water temperatures were.
So on board we go with Sergio Jimenez through the jump. You'll see him keep glancing down to his mirrors and to his bottom right, because there will be a rear view screen in the car with which he can check how close Christopher Nygaard is. But if anything, it's Nygaard who's going to be looking in the mirrors more. He had a little semi-look up the inside in there. That could compromise him.
I think he made a mistake, because it's given Mark Henrici another opportunity to have a look down the inside as they come down the hill into turn 15, and he might look down the inside, might try and get up alongside, has to get out of it and has to almost drive off the racetrack, but there's a potential pass coming up into turn 17.
Yeah, I think that could force Nygaard out of position at one point, which would allow him up the inside. It hasn't worked that time. Sergio Jimenez will be watching this.
And he's actually pulled away as a consequence of the defence from Christopher Nygaard from the attack of Mark Henrici.
He'll be very happy looking in his rear view mirror to see these two continuing to battle over what is 11th position. The two of them almost identical lap times, only 0.04 of a second difference between them last time around, whereas Jimenez managed to pull out 0.2 of a second on the pair of them. Very, very close. They dive across the inside, the Bas Linders line almost, as they head down into turns 4 and 5. And he's just lost a little bit of momentum now, the 40 car of Henrici. And as Sergio Jimenez, he hasn't got the pace to hold off these two for very long. I think only if these two keep battling will Jimenez hold on to 10th.
I think you're right, but that's an issue about motor racing. If you've got two guys battling behind a car that actually they should be ahead of, then they're never going to get ahead of it. And all Jimenez has got to do is maintain his line, not make any errors, not be seduced into driving quicker than he needs to do. The Corvette hops, skips and jumps forward slightly better through that 9-10 sequence, pulling gears. Sergio Jimenez did a great job on one of these cars in Brazil at Interlagos, but look at Nygaard looking to dive down the inside. He gets the job done, gets up the inside. Can Henrici follow through, make it a Ford 1-2? Yes, he does.
Brilliant work there. So Mark Henrici making up a position. He moves up into 11th place, so it's Nygaard from Henrici, and Sergio Jimenez drops down the field just a little bit, but this battle still isn't over. Henrici, is he going to be close enough for the look into the final corner? He thought about it, didn't he? A little twitch to the inside, but decided better of it out onto the start-finish straight they come, as this battle just calms down a little bit. Mark Henrici,
he was going to be a little bit too greedy if he thought he could make that move stick. He was not far enough up, and the track position was covered by Christopher Nygaard. He didn't let Mark Henrici get an opportunity.
Absolutely. So that's Mark Henrici up into 11th place. Let's hear from his teammate, Baz Linders. He's down with Haley.
Mark, will Mark be able to take Christopher? The last thing he wants to do is take his teammate out.
Yeah, of course, but we really would like this 10th position, because before the pit stop I was in front of the two Astons of Turner and Hoyenadel. We were 8 and 9, so at least the 10th position would be good, because the qualifying was a real disaster, so I hope to get a good result tomorrow.
You seem to take an interesting line at the start of the race, but it looks like you got away with it.
Well, it's very difficult at the start of the race, first of all because the green light comes on before we are around the bend, so we can't actually see it. There's not a lot of incidents at the start, which was good, but then it was a bit looking left and right where to go, and there was not a lot of space. This track is very narrow, and some people touched a little bit, but it's really good that nobody really crashed.
Thank you.
Well, he's got his excuses covered, hasn't he?
I mean, that's a version of an event that I watched, and you at home watched it as well, and I can't quite see the two overlapping.
Absolutely. So we've only got 5 minutes to go in this race. Baz Linders' colleague in the car is Mark Henrici. He's there in 11th place, but our race leader is their teammate Maxime Martin, and Henrici hasn't been able to keep the pace of Christopher Nygaard as they head across the start-finish straight now. This is the battle for 10th place, as I say. Nygaard now holding it. Hohenadel and Darren Turner just up in front. The gap is now up to 2.1 seconds between them, so that battle has calmed down a little bit. Turner in 8th, Hohenadel in 9th position. If anything, it's Steph Dusseldorp and Nicky Katzberg that may well be closing up in the final few stages of the race, up in the battle for 4th position. But here is our race leader, the 41 car of Maxime Martin. It was an impressive early stint from Fred Makovicky, and Martin really has just taken it from strength to strength.
Yeah, I mean, these two drivers have been effectively the class of this field in the qualifying race, and Richard Westbrook has seesawed between 1.3 and 1.6 seconds, but there's more pressure coming. Look at the back of the Nissan being pressured now by Steph Dusseldorf and Nicky Katzberg. With 3.5 or 3 minutes 50 seconds remaining, probably the best part of 2 and a bit laps. Corvette's pulled over.
That's a shame. We've already had one of the ex-Bank Team China cars out of the race because of contact earlier on. Great battling going into the final corner. That's going to compromise the Nissan's line. Can the Aston get it all sorts of wheel spin on the exit? Got a little bit sideways. They're going to be right together as they head over the start-finish line. This is the battle for 4th position and a second row starting slot for tomorrow's championship race. It's the Nissan in front of Nicky Katzberg. Behind is the number 3 Aston Martin of Steph Dusseldorf. He darts to the outside line to try and get the better cutback, and that'll maybe put him in good stead for the run down into turn 4 and 5, but that's a one-line corner, so it doesn't matter how wide you go in.
I mean, other than being pig ignorant and forcing your way, and we have seen a bit of that this afternoon in all fairness, but the Aston Martin Steph Dusseldorf isn't close enough at this point, and he doesn't need to be close enough anyway, because there's very little that he's able to do. We see the Corvette just on the exit of turn 6, waved yellow flag indicating no overtaking in that zone, but it isn't essentially an overtaking zone anyway, although we have had one or two manoeuvres, but up through turn 9. Oh, a lock-up from Jamie Campbell-Walter, and that again will play to the strengths of the Aston Martin. Clivio Piccioni is on that one straight away.
Yeah.
He's picked it up, but unfortunately Steph Düsseldorf didn't manage to run down the Nissan sufficiently into turn 11. But an indication that Jamie Campbell-Walter is under pressure.
Nicky Katzberg in the Vorberg. It's Jamie Campbell-Walter one place further up in the other Sumo GT car. So down into the left-hander at turn 14 they come. Only 2 minutes to go, so our race leader, has he just come across the line? We might have a couple of laps still out of this. Into the final corner.
Struggling for grip.
He read that though, didn't he? Covered the inside line.
Now he's got to deal with the speed of the Aston Martin, which will gain some aerodynamic advantage by being so close. It's a question of whether the grunt of Nissan will outdo the sophisticated B12 of the Aston Martin. Katzberg goes one way to the left to defend, to take the racing line. He actually pulls away from the Aston under sheer horsepower, and unfortunately Steph Düsseldorf can't do much, and again holds the tight inside line, forcing the long way around, frustrating Düsseldorf.
I think that Nissan is struggling with his tyres. He shouldn't be getting out of shape into the entry of such a slow corner.
Through turn 15 up to 16 and 17, he was so defensive. I mean, that's the most defensive I've seen of anybody in this race, and I suspect it's tyre and or brake related.
I guess when you're sitting in an Aston Martin like that, the Nissans must look absolutely huge because they're quite big cars and wide cars as well. So it probably looks like the widest car on the circuit for...
It's like driving down the motorway following a 43-ton truck.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we go then. This is where Katzberg locked up last time on the run-up into the chicane. No such lockups this time. Takes quite a lot of curb on the left-hand kink. We've got 45 seconds remaining, so I'm not 100% sure where Maxime Martin is on the circuit, but he will be starting his final lap fairly soon and defending at every single corner. This is going to be compromised him into turn 13.
He's got
the cutback, so great racing there, and it moves up into that position. Nicky Katzberg losing out to Steph Düsseldorf. He took that defensive line into 12, and as soon as he did that, you knew what was coming.
Absolutely, I mean, but well thought out by Steph Düsseldorf, because he saw that the Nissan was struggling, but he had to enable. He controlled, in fact, Nicky Katzberg from his car, and that's what racing drivers can do. They can force issues by doing one thing and putting the driver that you're putting under pressure under even greater pressure.
So out, the yellow flag still waving because of that Team China car, but the 41 car of Maxime Martin really has been maybe not a class of his own today. He's been pegged all the way by Peter Dumbreck and Richard Westbrook, but as he comes into the step for the final time, it's a very comfortable lead that he's got. The Golf Aston a little bit further back is back out, which is good news. He's running a lap or so down though, Thomas Enger, and maybe even more than that, actually possibly about 6 laps down, I think. But at the final time, the 41 car of Maxime Martin turns up through turns 12 and through turns 13, down through the sweeping corner of 14. It was the driver Frederick Makovici who took the start of the race. He held the lead at the first corner, gradually began to pull away. Under a little bit of pressure was Maxime Martin, but the man who drove a superb lap in qualifying to take pole position for this qualifying race is also going to take the win in the qualifying race to claim 8 points and pole position for tomorrow's championship race. It's the win for Maxime Martin in the Mark VDS racing car that he shares with Fred Makovici. Second place for Richard Westbrook. I've no doubt he'll be pleased with that. Thomas Enger comes across the line in the Golf car down in 17th place, so not really a representative performance from him. Then we've got a good 20 seconds or so to wait for third place, which should be Jamie Campbell-Walters, but a brilliant drive from the 41 car this afternoon.
Absolutely, and they did what they had to do. They got the lead at the start. That was key to winning this race. They got ahead of the Nissan they shared the front row of the grid with, and once they got that clear air, they had on average 1.5 seconds advantage throughout the race.
So here comes Steph Düsseldorf across the line, flashing his lights, making that move on the very final corner. We've still got these two Lamborghinis right together. Darren Turner is in there as well, along with Hohen Ardel. Hohen Ardel was following Darren Turner for most of that race, or most of his stint, I should say. Doesn't quite make it, so Nissan 5th, Lamborghinis in 6th and 7th, Aston Martins in 8th and 9th, and 10th position is going to go the way of Christopher Nygaard, who had that great battle with Mark Henrici, who should come home in 11th place. But we go on board with our race winner, Maxime Martin, and he takes the victory along with Fred Makovici. They'll no doubt be very, very pleased with that performance. As I say, not really having the outright pace that was a lot quicker than everyone else, but just that pole position really was crucial in the end, and that early lead they built up. So an impressive performance.
And interesting, just trying to just do a quick calculations on the championship standings in terms of the drivers. Really little, in fact virtually nothing has changed. Only 1 point lost to the Michael Krum Lucas Lure car. That lead now down to 13 points. But none of the other top 6 in the championship managed to score in this qualifying race, from my quick assessment of the results. And really, I'm surprised. I thought it might have been more than that.
Absolutely, and that'll be more crucial tomorrow in the championship race, where there's more points on offer. Of course, as we've said, these finishing positions will become the grid for tomorrow's championship race, where there's 25 points on offer for the race victory. So tomorrow is when we'll really see the championship positions changing. But today is where we've seen a good indication of who has pace and who doesn't around this circuit. And the Ford GT, very strong. The Nissan's very strong as well. As we've said in qualifying earlier on, when the Nissans arrived, they didn't think they were going to have the pace here.
No, they didn't. They came and saw the circuit and the configuration, which is 18 corners in a relatively small layout, 3.77 kilometers, just over 2.3 miles. They didn't think they were going to be in a position. They had all of their 4 cars in the top 8 in qualifying. And there you see joy from Fred Makovicky and Maxime Martin. Richard Westbrook sportingly shakes the hands of both the drivers. They knew they had a good race going on. Maxime Martin knows that Richard Westbrook is a mighty competitor, and great job done by Peter Dumbreck equally in that car with Richard Westbrook to put it into position to give Richard Westbrook the chance to consolidate the 2nd place.
Definitely. So it's Maxime Martin who takes the win along with Fred Makovicky. 2nd for Westbrook. My mind's gone blank. And 3rd place was Jamie Campbell-Walter and David Brabham. Peter Dumbreck, of course, finished 2nd alongside Richard Westbrook. So doesn't look too worn out, really, does he?
Well,
race winner Maxime Martin.
I mean, these are hot cars, and it's a warm day, and it's a very high work rate circuit. Jamie Campbell-Walter is probably more representative of a normal human being because he tends to sweat like a racehorse.
He will no doubt be happy with that 3rd position. They've had 3 3rd places this season, 1 in a qualifying race and 2 championship race 3rd positions. They haven't actually finished any higher. They'll be hoping that can change tomorrow with a strong starting position. And also, of course, we've got the 2 Nissans on the podium are from different teams. The Sumo Power GT Nissan finishing in 3rd, with the JR Motorsports Nissan of Richard Westbrook, and Peter Dumbreck coming home in 2nd place. I think on today's pace, we've seen that the Ford GT has a lot of pace, and I think their teammates, Mark Henerici in the 40 car, they'll be hoping they can sort it out for qualifying tomorrow, because they could be, right up with this kind of top group.
Well, I mean, they'll start from whatever position it is. Henrici will be 11th, just outside the top 10 in the championship race. So that's going to be, it's a big ask, because we have seen from the qualifying race there are opportunities to pass, but a lot of it's going to be about being patient rather than being overly aggressive. And to come from 10th to score points, possible. To get on the podium, very difficult.
So let's hear from our race winners, Maxime Martin and Fred Makovicky.
Congratulations, Max. You turn your 1st pole into a win.
Yeah, it's fantastic for the whole team. Fred did a perfect start, perfect stint, and the car was very good. So Richard Westbrook was behind, but no, it was good and a very good race, and I hope we can do it the same tomorrow.
And Fred, congratulations. It certainly is the track for the Ford GT.
Yeah, sure, it's perfect for the team because they do an unbelievable job, and it was not so easy to exit first at the first corner, but after it was not, the car was really constant. It's perfect for us.
Thank you.
Excellent, great to hear from our 2 winners. They seem pretty comfortable, pretty confident with the car as well, and that's a very important thing in a long race such as this. They knew exactly what the car was going to do at every corner. The 41 Mark VDS Racing team taking the victory then, as we see the Exim Bank Team China car just about to be cleared. Neither of those cars finishing the race, a real shame, as we will now go down to our 2nd place men, Richard Westbrook and Peter Dumbreck, there with Haley.
Congratulations, Richard. Finally, another good result for you.
Yeah, and it's a long time coming, and yeah, we're delighted to be back on the podium, and completely unexpected here. It's not a track that we turned up expecting much. We were hoping to pick up some good points, but we didn't even dream of a second position when we walked the track on Thursday. But we've worked tirelessly with the engineers, and they've given us a really good car on a slow track, which is a bit of a Nissan shocker. And I just wish we had this car at Sachsenring and Navarra, because yeah, it was nice to drive, but the Ford just had that little bit too much. It was a bit too comfortable to him.
And Peter, congratulations. No, that upgrade and that extra time been spent on the car has certainly paid off for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think the break in between. Okay, the car's been getting shipped, but they've been working back at the factory and thinking of ways to improve the car, and it's really worked for us. So hopefully we can take that on for the remaining. Well, we've got tomorrow obviously, but the remaining 2 rounds as well. And it'd be nice if 22 could score at least 1 win before the end of the year. A proper win.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
As they've said, it's been a very frustrating season for them. They're lying quite a way down in the championship compared to where you would expect them to be, down in 11th place. Good start of the season, as I said, 2 podiums in Abu Dhabi, a win in the Algarve, but they've had 5 retirements so far this season. Let's hear from 3rd position men, Jamie Campbell-Walter and teammate David Brabham.
Jamie, congratulations. Great result for the team and for the GTR.
Yeah, Brabs and I have had a good run of late and seems to continue. We came here not thinking that the GTR would be that great, but it's actually turned out to have 2 cars on the podium. Another one in 5th place. I'm not sure where Michael finished, so great result, great starting position for tomorrow. This man did a great move on our teammate Bernaldi, so really happy.
Congratulations, David. Is this where the birthday celebrations start to begin?
Not birthday yet, but yeah, no, it's like Jamie said, it's a great result for the GTR and Sumo Power, and well done to Car 22 for finishing 2nd. So we got the Nissans up front there for tomorrow. Very much looking forward to the race. I feel like momentum's kind of building for us. So great job by the team, and they gave us a pretty good car in the race.
Thank you.
Well, as we celebrate the top 3, which we will do in a moment, it's worth pointing out the number 3 Texas Racing Aston Martin, Clivio Piccioni and Steph Dusseldorf did a fantastic job because they started down in 9th place on the grid. So to get up to 4th, it was a great drive. They gave us plenty of entertainment.
Well, I mean, certainly Clivio Piccioni did give us a lot of entertainment during his driving stint and got that Aston Martin into position, which then was the platform for Steph Dusseldorf to continue. And again, a great maneuver in him to get round the Corvette towards the end of the race, and once he was past, then he just steamed forward.
Absolutely. So as I say, both ex-Inbank Team China cars retiring, which is a real shame for the Chinese fans that have turned out. They didn't even get to see their man Ho Pin Tung race, but he will be starting tomorrow's championship race. So as long as they can get those cars sorted by the start of tomorrow's race, they should be able to see him race. So we are now going to hear from Jean-Pierre Delaporte, and he is the manager of Mark VDS Racing.
Congratulations, Jean-Mi. Can you convert it to another win tomorrow?
We hope so, because it's the 3rd time we won in Saturday, so we will pray all the night to win next day. But I'm very happy for the team because he's worked very hard, and this season was very difficult for everybody because we made a lot of things, and congratulations for them.
Thank you.
So the manager of the winning team, no doubt delighted with the performance that his Ford GT has shown out there today. And as we said, we weren't particularly expecting it as such. Having a little chat with Laurence, who's the manager of the other Ford GT, the Belgian racing cars, possibly getting some setup tips or something like that. 1.7 seconds the gap at the end then between the Ford and the Nissan of Martin and Makovicky, ahead of Westbrook and Dumbreck. And then it was 30 seconds back to the Nissan in 3rd place of Jamie Campbell-Walter and David Brabham. A real dominating performance. They too were quite clear of the Aston in 4th. We had the Nissan in 5th. Then we had the 2 Lamborghinis in 6th and 7th. Again, fairly close towards the end. That battle down towards with the 2 Aston Martins was very close indeed. You can see just 1.5 seconds from Winkelhock and Basseng down to Hohen Ardel and Piccini down in 9th place. Then we had 2 more Ford GTs, the 2nd Mark VDS car and the Belgian racing car of Nygaard and Hershey, Henrici and Linders, with the Nissan GTR finishing in 12th place. Our championship leaders Lucas Luhr and Michael Crum with no points to show from this afternoon, and not really a very good starting position. Benjamin Lauenberger and Michael Lauert got to the end of the race, which is good news for them in their first race. Jan Clary and Antoine Leclerc getting to the end as well for the first time since Silverstone. Jonathan Kennard and Christopher Brook did get back out, but lost a lot of laps in the process. Jimenez and Rossi retired with a few laps to go. Thomas Enger and Muller also lost a number of laps with car problems, and we saw Ho-Pin-Tung and Jerome Denber out very early on in the race, which is a real shame, but hopefully they can get those cars sorted for tomorrow. Here's a look at the championship. As we say, in the top 6, nothing really changing, because I don't think any of them scored points out there this afternoon, but things are going to change, apart from obviously the 1 point game that Bisseng and Winkelhock will claim. But tomorrow is where the big points changes are going to occur. It's still Crum and Luhr at the top, but they will be starting considerably behind their main championship rivals of Marcus Winkelhock and Marc Basseng. In the teams championship, JR Motorsports and Alinkel.com Munich Motorsports now tied on points at the top, and only a point between the two Aston Martin teams, Hextis and Young Driver. So we're really going to see some inter-manufacturer rivalry coming into the remainder of the season. Of course, starting with tomorrow's championship race, then we've got Mark VDS boistering up their points tally with that win in 6th. Swiss Racing Team in 7th, with Belgian Racing down in 8th position in the team classification. So we witnessed a pretty exciting race, actually. There was plenty of action throughout that race, which was good to watch, and hopefully we'll see more of the same tomorrow.
Yes, Count van der Straten, the owner of the team, who's been an incredible supporter of motorsport globally for longer than I would care to remember, or his family certainly have, and a great day for him. Another victory and delight indeed for the Ford GT team to move into Sunday's race. You were talking about we didn't know what to expect, and quite rightly so, because there's never been a race of this level at the Ordos International Circuit before, and it's proven that we can have entertaining and exciting motor racing. It is difficult around certain parts of the track. It is very tight and sinuous for a large part of it, but look after your car, look after your tires, and it is possible to get past. And even in some parts of the circuit that we didn't think were possible, such as into turn 17, we saw a few rude moves, and we saw 1 or 2 that were well thought out.
Absolutely. So an entertaining debut for the Ordos International Circuit, and an entertaining debut for FAI GT1 World Championship here in China. So it was great to see the racing around the circuit, and it's also kept nice and clear, hasn't it?
Beautiful day. I mean, it's turned out a cracking afternoon, and the fans all around the racetrack, I would think, would go away thoroughly entertained, and hopefully come back tomorrow and see even better.
So it was on pole position. We had Maxime Martin and Fred Makovicky. It was Fred Makovicky starting on the front row of the grid, and there were our previous championship leaders. Richard Westbrook would take over the car later on, after a great battle for second place meant that Peter Dumbreck had held on to that position. We all got through turn 1 fairly cleanly, which was great to see, apart from a little tap here. The number 12 car of Michael Rossi getting stuck in.
Yes, the other Corvette of Arunda, but there you see it, the whole front of the car has been removed. That car was to retire immediately. There's the move, the Baz Landers move, and he gained advantage from doing so. And did he give it back up again, or are we looking further around the racetrack? The point was that do something like that, you're legally required to step back. But there's the other battle, and into turn 17 again. That was one of the more rude moves, bashing down the inside, splitting the 2 Lamborghinis. Again, the Corvette running wide, coming out of turn 10. As the battle through the field, the race lead was being dominated by the Ford GT and the Nissan GTR, but it was the midfield battle for the final point of this race that was the entertainment. Here's the lead car coming in, the change of drivers. Makovicky gets in, Maxime Martin gets in. Peter Dumbreck did a great job in the Nissan, hands over to Richard Westbrook, and the gap between the 2 cars from coming in and returning to the track was virtually status quo.
Absolutely, it was very interesting to see the 2 begin to close in after that, but as you say, up at the front it was status quo for the remainder of the race. A very, very strong performance from Maxime Martin after his fantastic pole position lap. Him and Fredrik Makovicky taking the victory, taking the checkered flag, and taking 8 points and pole position for tomorrow's race. So my name is Jack Nichols. I've been joined by John Watson. We've had Haley Coxon in the pits. Join us tomorrow for the championship race.